really privileged. We have an amazing lineup of people speaking and presenting to you over the next 2 days. But I think you'll also recognise as you walk around the room, there's an extraordinary community of individuals here who are amazing in their own way. And make sure you take your time, just get to know people today.
I think for some of us, that maybe came from a traditional sport or from an action sports background, and you see these new sports and you go, gosh, how do you coach it? How exactly put a league together? What are the rules? How do you make these, I'll say kids, but that's not the right word, even going in. How do you think about that with a new sport?
There really is just beginning. Esports is just beginning to have infrastructure, a path to pro that you see in all the, whether you were in running or golf or, Little League, there was, Little League and AAU and travel ball, and then you played for a bunch of coaches and you had different, you went to hotels and you went to college, and it's a digital game and you go home and you're so accessible because it's all, you stream online and everyone tells you you're wonderful, you suck every night. The amount of pressure on them is pretty tremendous, and you have no training, right? No training how to live outside of your house, no training how to be part of a team, no training how to deal with all that. So coaching's a really big one, nutrition, and okay, if you're going to invest $1 million in a player, just like we invest, Darren Fox is our #1 draft pick. We invest a lot of money and time in him. You're going to make sure that he's taking care of himself, that he's working out, that they're eating well, that they're not, too much in front of the computer, that they have other things in their life. But we're just at the first stages of that, and there's a whole industry around it now trying to figure out, all right, how do I get involved and how do I help that?
Damage on, gets so much damage, it gets a crit. Sven going low, Brandini looking for another one.
What's special about League of Legends is that you're playing straight head on. There's no breaks, there's no timeouts, and if you're messing up, if you're stressed, if you're performing poorly, it really requires strong mental resilience for your teammates to really pick you up.
So kind of speaking of League of Legends and how it started, so I think Riot realized they had something special on their hands, and they said, well, how do we test this? How do we make it and see if we can do something real here? And that's what we're trying to explain and help people understand. This is a new sport for a new generation.
And we're trying to understand a little better about white matter hyperintensity. So as we all know, and I think we can all agree with, optimal brain health is going to lead to optimal cognitive performance, or at least set you up for optimal cognitive performance. And so we're looking at things like cerebral blood flow, brain tissue oxygenation, and also brain lymphatic function, which I'll talk about in a second. So we're looking at how those things are impacted in these extreme environments, how we can track them, especially kind of in a real-time way or in a way that's applicable to the field, but also looking at strategies to improve things like cerebral blood flow, brain oxygenation, or brain lymphatic outflow.
How can you bring gamers together in physical spaces, and in doing so, give them access to all those other great things that come from the sports that everyone traditionally thinks about? What it means to be a part of a team, collaboration, leadership, just good practice, how you learn from each other when you play together. The first thing is that gaming is not something you grow out of. That may have been what my parents thought when I was hanging out at the arcade a lot in 8th and 9th grade, but this is a lifestyle decision. People are going to come in and out of different games. Sometimes they'll be the player, sometimes they'll be the spectator, but this is something that people are going to do throughout their lifetime.
So Carnegie Mellon, I've been lucky to run a competitive hacking team, and they fly all over the world, to Korea, to Japan, to Russia, and then here in the US. And I want to talk about how we go about thinking about making cognitive athletes like this. Like, what are the principles that we use for training? A lot of attributes that are maybe a little bit counterintuitive. It's not about being completely calm, it's about managing stress. It's about managing the situation. And so when we look at, in competitive hacking, how do we get to that next level? We're starting to look at those sorts of factors.
We look at the eye tracking data, and we take the CSGO players and we arrange them according to rank, and we look at the average and max pupil dilation across the test. So again here, pupil dilation, higher pupil dilation indicative of more cognitive effort. In this group of people, we didn't see a statistical significant difference in their performance on the test, but we saw that there was a significant correlation between the pupil dilation across the test and the CSGO rank. And what we're seeing here is that with a higher CSGO rank, it's associated with smaller changes in the pupil diameter, so they're actually putting in less cognitive effort to perform at the same level as their competitors here.
So how can we get into the state of ketosis? How can we trigger our bodies to start making ketones? The numbers you're looking at here is back from the sort of 60s when it was still ethical to take people and starve them for 40 days. So you can see that over the 40-day period, blood ketone levels rise slowly.
How we want to capture the cognitive state of a human, the amount of information your brain uses in order to do the job properly. It is not sufficient if the coach yell at you and say, hey, do the job properly. He or she should understand my cognitive state properly in order to just like give me the precise and accurate commands.
As we look at human-machine teaming, is there's no particular boundaries that we have to hit against, and so I would just encourage us to run and develop as fast as we can. I had done work in marksmanship with imagery analysts, other types of very complex behaviors. When we look for signatures in these complex behaviors, we find them. Whether it's the e-gaming environment or a complex military operation, those complexities should be kept, and we should rise to the occasion of how to capture them and how to get the brain measures and the physiological measures and bring them all together.
I think the key thing to understand is that there's sort of a range of different kinds of tasks that we work on in any organization, be it the military or a corporation. The definitions of collective intelligence, the applications, it's very much task dependent, it's situational dependent, it depends on how much stress and cognitive load is the team undergoing in which they're in the task they're doing.
The very simplest scenario is we're going to put somebody to sleep, open the chest, stop the heart, take out a bad valve, put a new one in, restart the heart, close it up again. Right? That sounds pretty straightforward, which it is. But you know, there are a couple challenges there that tie right into this. So this morning we saw these amazing esports athletes. One of the coolest things that I heard in that discussion was the difference between the top pros and the next level down is how they communicate. It's not the technical skill set. And I'll often tell our junior residents, I can teach anyone how to operate. I mean, you can have the worst hands ever, and we can make you a capable surgeon. But it is the brain and your social skills that determine whether you can take care of really sick people.
So shown here is work done in my lab at the University of Pittsburgh, where we worked with volunteers from the community that are paralyzed. These are people that have lost all motor function from the neck down. So in this case, Jan Sherman, the woman shown here, she has volunteered to have a device implanted into her primary motor cortex. This is the area of our brain that forms instructions for movement. And by recording from hundreds of neurons in Jan's motor cortex, she's able to express in new ways her attention to act and move.
The challenge is for us to hack this stuff out, to understand it so that we can share it, so that in 5, 10, 15 years, every kid in the world has the tools to achieve this no matter what they're up against.